The smell of cinnamon and nutmeg fills the air as I stand at the kitchen counter, stirring a bubbling pot of apple cider. It takes me back to long, joyous autumn afternoons when the house brimmed with laughter. David, my sweet boy, would run in from outside, cheeks flushed from the crisp air, his laughter ringing like music as he plopped down at the table. I can still envision the whitewashed walls adorned with crayon drawings, the fingerprints of a child's unrestrained spirit. Those were the days I sacrificed my own ambitions, setting them aside like worn-out shoes, as I focused on nurturing my son's dreams. I remember how I took on extra shifts when his school needed funds for a sports program. Never mind that my own dreams of travel and adventure were left collecting dust. I held on to my hope, believing that every sacrifice I made would someday bloom into something beautiful for him. Every Sunday, I'd prepare a sumptuous feast: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and warm, buttery rolls that melted in your mouth. The dinners became our sacred tradition, a time to reconnect, to talk about his day and my dreams for him. My hands would tremble slightly as I wiped the table. It was the thrill of having him home, of being close to the boy I had nurtured into the man he had become. But as I look back now, there were moments, flashes of awareness that something was changing. Even as I poured my heart into him, I felt the creeping shadows when Vanessa entered our lives. I recall how her laughter felt different, jarring against the harmony we created. When she first joined our family gatherings, I was eager to embrace her, to welcome her into the fold. Yet her easy confidence contrasted sharply with my apprehensive kindness. It began subtly. One winter evening, as we sipped cocoa in the cozy living room, I made a joke about the trials of parenting. Vanessa chuckled lightly but then abruptly pivoted, casting a sidelong glance at David. "I'm grateful he doesn't have to rely on you for advice," she said, her smile sharp. I remember the small gasp escaping my lips, the way my heart twisted painfully in my chest. Those cracks widened over the years. At family gatherings, she would dismiss my cooking, replacing my dishes with store-bought alternatives, her voice dripping with condescension. "I hope everyone enjoys the new flavors." David would chuckle along, not realizing the hurt hidden beneath the surface of my skirts, the swirling sense of betrayal that hung in the air like an unwelcome guest. Days turned into months, and months into years, with her presence growing larger in my life and my spirit shrinking smaller. I had delighted in sharing my life with David. I had celebrated every milestone. I had comforted him during heartbreaks. But as Vanessa tightened her grip on him, I felt myself slipping further and further into the background, as if I were just another piece of furniture that no one bothered to notice. Reflecting on that now, I want to scream. I had given every part of myself to him, my time, my love, my very breath, and yet someone else was now defining my place in his life. Subtly, cruelly, I was being replaced, as if the love I poured into raising him meant nothing. Yet, in my yearning heart, a smoldering ember refuses to die out. I yearn to break free from the shadows of being the outsider, to reclaim the bond I once cherished. I feel the heat of resolve building. I once thought that love alone could heal the fractures in our family, but now I see I must reclaim what is rightfully mine. It's not just about being seen, it's about taking my rightful place in the sun. Vanessa arrived like a summer storm, sudden and sweeping, her vibrant presence splashing color over the life I had carefully cultivated. At our first family dinner, I recall the feel of the polished oak table beneath my fingertips, its surface gleaming from countless family meals. As I placed the roast on the center of the table, I felt the warmth of nostalgia flood my heart. My nice china sparkled. It was our tradition, one that symbolized togetherness and love. But that night, The atmosphere shifted with her arrival. "Nice to meet all of you," she said with a flick of her hair, her confidence radiating as she swept into the room. It was undeniable that she was beautiful. Her presence commanded attention effortlessly. I welcomed her with open arms, eager to embrace this new chapter. But as the evening unfolded, the laughter felt hollow, the warmth doused in her icy demeanor. She complimented my cooking, but her tone made it clear that it was superficial, designed to impress, not to connect. That evening, I served my homemade lasagna, layers of rich cheese and tangy sauce bubbling invitingly. Just before I wandered to the kitchen for a fresh batch of garlic bread, I overheard her whisper to David, "Is this what you had to grow up on?" Poor thing. A knot formed in my stomach. A mother's instinct prickled at that moment, warning me of the discontent wrapped in her words. Time slid on, like grains of sand through my fingers, with subtle humiliations creeping in like weeds among my cherished blooms. I remember one Sunday, the scent of freshly baked apple pie wafted through the house, and the family gathered as I set it on the table. Just as I reveled in the joy of serving this homemade delight, Vanessa, with her effortless charm, remarked, "Can't David get dessert anywhere these days? It's a wonder how he isn't fat." Her laughter was accompanied by the tightening in my chest, a short breath as David's chuckle broke the moment like glass shattering. Thereafter, I noticed how she'd sidle up to my son with sly compliments that championed her over me, gently eroding the foundation I had built over the years. "David, you know we could use some of that stylish decor from your mother's home. You could lend her a hand." At those moments I felt her eyes, cold and assessing, as if calculating every flaw. I'd smile, but inside, my heart sank. Couldn't he see what was happening? That my worth was being quietly chipped away. The stakes increased when David and I celebrated his birthday, a significant milestone. My home echoed with balloons and laughter. I had spent days planning the menu, carefully selecting his favorite dishes. When Vanessa arrived, however, her demands eclipsed the occasion. "David," she called, forcing his attention away from the gathering. "You know, we need to talk about your work schedule." The celebration paused, and I felt the breath catch in my throat, the weight of her words suffocating all liveliness. As the night wore on, I caught glimpses of their furtive exchanges, whispers wrapped in secrecy, barely concealed under laughter that never involved me. The families of their friends were delightful to mine. I wished so hard to bridge this gap, but each attempt felt thwarted by her subtle dismissals. One afternoon, while visiting her at their home, I sat stiffly in the padded chair, a bright floral pattern beneath me. I offered to help with the kids, eager to show my place in this new family dynamic. But Vanessa's response was cool, lacking in invitation. "Oh, no need, Clara. They're fine, really. They'll just want to play on their devices anyway." As the children giggled, pulled into the warm embrace of their mother's world, I could feel the sting of isolation settle against my skin. Yet, I found moments of solace with Lucy and Ethan. They delighted in my presence, calling me grandma with innocent affection. I wondered if they could see the rift forming, if the weight I carried was visible to them. After school, they'd come running into my arms, leaving fleeting traces of joy that illuminated the dark corners of my heart. But just as quickly, Vanessa would shoo them away with a steely gaze, enforcing boundaries that stung like frost on a delicate flower. At family gatherings, I became increasingly aware of my relegated status. I recall the last Thanksgiving, where I had prepared the traditional feast, a work of love and dedication. As I placed the turkey on the table, I caught Vanessa smirking from across the room. "You think people really want this overtake? There's only so much turkey you can eat." The shared laughter in the room connected with me like the sharp bite of wind on a cold day. I looked at David, silently pleading for him to acknowledge my pain, but his eyes were cast away, lost among the amber leaves outside. The stark contrast between my efforts and her disregard felt unbearable. I had fed love into this family like a nurturing gardener, yet here I stood, just an observer, a visitor in my own life. Each dismissive quip added another layer to the brewing storm inside me. Beneath vanishing smiles and hollow laughter, I felt the echoes of my mother's mantra surface within me. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. I clenched my fists, determined that this would not continue. I had given too much to remain an outsider, and it was time to reclaim my voice. As the weeks turned to months, the fabric of my life began to unravel under the weight of silent humiliations. Each encounter, I began to dread them, felt like a tight knot in my throat, making it harder to breathe whenever I stepped into David and Vanessa's home. I often caught myself rehearsing my words silently, trying to craft the perfect, polite responses that would echo my dignity. Yet, my mind raced with anxiety every time I entered their space. It was during one of these visits, as I arrived with a freshly baked apple pie, that I first felt the chill of Vanessa's subtle disdain. The kitchen smelled inviting. Cinnamon and sugar teased my senses as I placed the pie on the counter. My heart fluttered with the familiar joy of sharing a treat, the love baked inside it, almost palpable. But as David popped his head out of the living room, Vanessa shot me a look that sliced through my enthusiasm. "That again," she remarked dryly, shaking her head as if the pie were a burden rather than a gift. "Can't you try something new for once? David would love to taste a nice store-bought dessert." Her words hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating my pride and making my hands tremble slightly as I fought to maintain my composure. David laughed it off, assuring Vanessa that my pies were his favorite, but his laughter felt hollow, a half-hearted echo in a room filled with shimmering expectations that I could not meet. As they retreated into the living room, I was left standing in the kitchen, the warm pie growing cold on the counter, my heart yearning for acknowledgement. With every family event, my status felt as if it were set in stone, a silent portrait of a forgotten matriarch. I started to anticipate Vanessa's jabs, rehearsing responses in my mind that never found their way to my lips. At the Christmas party, while I carefully hung the ornaments, her laughter echoed, drawing attention away from me. "You should have seen Clara's tree back in the day. It was a real mess," she exclaimed, gesturing towards my efforts. The laughter that followed stung. Each chuckle felt like a small dagger aimed at my heart. I turned away, forcing a smile that did not quite reach my eyes. The twinkling lights blurred as tears threatened to spill. I refused to let them see me break. Later, as I stepped outside for air, the chill settled in my spine like an unwelcome visitor. I felt the sting of her mockery lingering, a reminder of my fading relevance. As time went on, I began to notice how I slowly became invisible during important discussions. At family gatherings, conversations flowed around me, but my contributions fell flat. During one tense dinner about David's job promotion, I foolishly ventured a suggestion on how he could prepare for the new challenges ahead. Vanessa turned to me with barely concealed irritation. "What do you know about the corporate world, Clara? He'll figure it out just fine." Her words ringed hollow, yet echoed deep in my chest. David remained silent. "Of course, dear," I murmured weakly, retreating into the shadows. I yearned for recognition, longing for David to stand beside me, to publicly defend me against Vanessa's smothering disdain. But each time I sought reassurance, I found his eyes wandering, avoiding mine, as if I were a stranger standing in the corner, watching their intimate dance. The silence hurt more than any words Vanessa flung at me, offering tacit approval of her disregard. At family outings, I became a phantom in the periphery. I would watch Lucy and Ethan play, unaware of the fissures forming in their family tapestry, wishing it were different. Each day, the whisper of laughter, once filled with warmth, now wrapped themselves in the chill of separation. I longed to be the fun grandmother they delighted in, but Vanessa shielded them, binding their affections tightly around her. I felt drained as the events piled up, my spirit wilting under the weight of my position. I began keeping a journal, a refuge where I could pour my feelings into ink on paper. Whenever I felt the sting of Vanessa's remarks, I would sit quietly, penning my thoughts with a shuddering hand. The words I placed onto the pages became both an outlet and my silent strength, reminding me of the love I had always poured into my family, despite their growing distance. But as the silent humiliations accumulated, so too did my anger. I grew weary of staying silent, my dignity eroding with each passive remark Vanessa tossed my way. "You're not part of this family." I could hear her voice echoing like a cruel chant, and I gritted my teeth against the painful realization. I had to find a way to stand up, to reclaim my place, not just as David's mother, but as someone who deserved respect and love. One evening, as I prepared for bed, I looked at my reflection in the mirror, studying the lines etched into my face. I recalled my mother's mantra, "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." Sitting there, I realized the truth buried within her words. I had been living for them, but it was time to fight for my own spirit, for my dignity. With a newfound courage surging within me, I squeezed the pages of my journal. I would no longer allow fear to keep me subdued, no longer let the barb of humiliation nest in my heart. It was time to strategize, to rediscover my voice, and finally confront the shadows that loomed over my family dynamics. The days turned into a blur, each marked by quiet determination forged in the recesses of my heart. But resolve alone would not be enough. I needed to gather evidence, to document the downpour of humiliations that fell upon me like an unrelenting rain. With my journal as my confidant, I set out to recount every incident, providing me with a clear perspective of how deep and insidious Vanessa's manipulation truly was. I created sections, each dedicated to specific events and interactions. Each page became a mirror reflecting how my once vibrant presence had been dimmed. I wrote meticulously about every dismissive comment, each derogatory remark disguised as humor. Writing transformed my feelings into tangible artifacts, something I could hold and observe, rather than letting them swirl chaotically in my mind. One grisly Saturday afternoon, I found myself at their home, a gathering typical of their weekends where conversations flitted around like fireflies. The children flitted between rooms, and the soft sounds of clinking dishes intertwined with giggling laughter. I stood in the corner, palms resting on the counter, childishly hoping to feel the warmth of inclusion radiate my way. Instead, Vanessa's sharp voice sliced through the cheerful mask. "David, you forget to buy my favorite snacks at the store." "How could you? It's not like you have a mother who always delivers." There it was again. Her twisted humor aimed at me, intended to dwarf my role and elevate herself. The warmth in the room took on a chilly bite as she continued, her laughter serving as an invitation to others, leaving me dangling like an unwanted adornment. My heart surged with indignation. I quickly jotted this down later that evening with shaking hands, feverishly cataloguing yet another indignity. I had to be vigilant, like a detective piecing together a case against an adversary who had shrouded herself in familiarity under the guise of family. I took note of patterns, how her jokes targeted my presence, how David fell silent, always deflecting attention to her with uneasy laughter. Eventually, I shifted my focus beyond my experiences alone. I began to watch David and Vanessa closely, the environments influenced by their dynamics. I needed to peel back layers, looking for signs of how their relationship worked, what gave her power over him. I anticipated their interactions like a seasoned investigator, sharpening my awareness with each family visit. One evening, as they hosted a couple of friends for dinner, I remained a mere backdrop. The aroma of grilled steak wafted through the air, and bright lights illuminated the laughter that danced above my head. I remembered how once I would have claimed that joyous space, how I would weave myself into the stories and jokes. But now, I stood behind the curtains, shadows absorbing my figure, as I scribbled notes in my journal on the interactions I witnessed. At first, the jovial atmosphere seemed innocent enough. Vanessa engaged the guests, but as the seconds ticked by, I watched as her warmth morphed from bright hospitality into suffocating control. "Oh, Clara's great at desserts, but we can't all be good at everything, right?" she bantered, her smile betraying the calculated mockery. I noted how David chuckled, a response born of both affection and discomfort, an unsettling mix. The way she moved around him was a dance, layered with both affection and dominance. I recognized it as an emotional coercion. Her charisma drew him in, silencing my presence while simultaneously pushing him further from me. It unsettled me, but I remained vigilant, absorbing as much information as I could gather. After that evening, I turned to my daughter-in-law's connections, friends of Vanessa who often celebrated her witticisms while casting shadows on my contributions. I listened more closely when they gathered, trying to discern the lines of camaraderie that bound them. Their shared laughter echoed like coins, rich against the backdrop of my solitude. I learned quickly how her close friend Lisa mirrored the same passive hostility toward me when I stumbled upon them at a cafe. I watched as Lisa, while coffee clung warmly between her hands, leaned toward Vanessa, her words laced with mockery aimed directly at me. "I hope Clara doesn't think she'll ever outshine you in the family. That would be quite the fantasy." The laughter shifted like tides around them, buoyed by shared disdain. Yet it was the moments when Vanessa's mask slipped that proved the most telling. One afternoon, awaiting David's arrival for lunch, I heard them through the thin walls of their home. Their conversation carried through the air, words sharp and stinging. "Why do you let her intrude so much? She's got her own life. She doesn't need to meddle in ours," Vanessa said with a bite. My heart raced as I listened, torn between embarrassment and growing resolve. I quickly recorded the instances in my journal, these pieces of dialogue stitched together from hidden corners, the cracks forming in her facade. These bits transformed my resolve from vague anger into strategic intent. I couldn't just confront Vanessa. I had to weave a response through layers of acceptance, exposing her manipulation like an artist peeling away the layers of an intricate painting. I decided that rather than an outburst, a finely crafted confrontation would reveal the truth to David, show him the reality of our situation, and reveal Vanessa's true nature. Weeks went by as I mapped out my plan, writing endlessly in my journal, each entry driving me into a deeper commitment. The mantra echoed through me. "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." Empowered with each word, I felt the prospect of reclaiming my dignity grow brighter. As I found traces of Vanessa's intimidation tactics woven into my narrative, I envisioned a confrontation that would illuminate the truth without drowning it in confrontation. I visualized calmness, a composed unveiling of reality. The evening would draw near, carefully stacked with evidence gathered not from anger, but from observation, our family dynamics, her manipulation, and David's silence. This would be the moment to reclaim my voice, to redefine my place at the table, and reclaim my heart in this family. The evening finally arrived, carrying with it a tremble of anticipation that coursed through me as I prepared for the moment that could shift the entire landscape of my relationship with David and Vanessa. The weight of my journal, filled front to back with evidence of Vanessa's dismissals, nestled in the depths of my bag. Each page held fragments of our familial tapestry, woven with both love and manipulation. Tonight was going to be different. I would reclaim my narrative and my rightful place in their lives. As I stepped into their home, the familiar warmth embraced me, but a chill lingered just beneath the surface, thick with unspoken tensions. The fragrant aroma of roasted vegetables wafted from the kitchen, mingling with the faint sound of clanging pots and pans, elements of a meal Vanessa had meticulously crafted to showcase her culinary skills. It struck me that her cooking often served as a stage for her to shine, one where I felt the shadows of my own diminishing presence. "Mom, you're here!" David's exuberant greeting sliced through my thoughts, his smile radiant and infectious as he moved to embrace me. His excitement anchored me for a moment, a temporary respite from the bubbling tension inside. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, my voice steady despite the swirl of anxiety. I passed by the family photos that lined the walls, images frozen in time, reminders of laughter, celebrations, and love during the seasons when I felt secure in my role as a mother and grandmother. I took my seat at the dining table, where the soft glow of ambient light illuminated the carefully arranged dishes. Vanessa had selected her finest settings, the china sparkling under the chandelier. Yet that glow felt like a spotlight, emphasizing my own inadequacies. Throughout the meal, she dominated the conversation, effortlessly spinning tales of triumph that cast her as the heroine while softly undermining me with seemingly innocent quips. "Clara, was David always this boring as a child? It's a miracle he has anything interesting going on now." Her laughter rang out, drawing giggles from David and the others, but inside me, it echoed coldly. Each chuckle was like a dagger, piercing through layers of my resilience. I fought the urge to retreat further into myself, unwilling to let her wash over me like a wave. "Vanessa, you underestimate how vital every child's experience is," I retorted, my tone firm. I focused my eyes on David, trying to pull him into my orbit with my heartfelt words. "Each person in this family has something unique to contribute." In that moment, a flicker of awareness seemed to cross David's face, but Vanessa brushed off my response with a laugh, continuing her stories. I felt like an outsider in my own family as the evening flowed, tension subtly crawling through the dinner table atmosphere. After the meal concluded, I saw an opportunity as guests began to filter out, leaving just David and me. "David, can we talk for a moment?" I asked, lowering my voice and leaning in slightly. A knot formed in my stomach as I watched uncertainty flash across his face. "Sure. What's up?" he replied, his inflection tinged with hesitance as he settled onto the couch beside me. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. There's something I need to express, and it isn't easy for me. My heart raced, and I inhaled deeply to steady myself. "I've been feeling marginalized, as if my presence in your family is more of an intrusion than a blessing." David's brows knitted together in concern. "Mom, I didn't realize—" "Vanessa's comments aren't merely jokes to dismiss my value," I continued, finding strength in the conviction radiating from my core. "They chip away at my dignity. It's hurtful, and it makes me feel like a ghost in my own family." As I spoke, I watched his expression shift from confusion to seriousness. "I thought it was just playful banter," he admitted, the clarity in his voice echoing uncertainty. "It's more than that," I pressed gently. "I don't want to be seen as an outsider. I'm your mother, and I want to nurture our family ties instead of being dismissed." David's gaze clouded with revelation, the truth starting to crystallize under the weight of my words. "I had no idea it was so serious, Mom," I continued, seizing the momentum. "It's vital that we set boundaries. I believe it's essential to have open discussions about her comments, to bring her awareness of the damage it causes. She needs to see how her actions impact every one of us." "What if she gets upset?" David asked softly, the trepidation evident in his voice. "I can handle her reaction. The truth is necessary," I assured him, my resolve unshakable. "You need to approach it with understanding. We can confront this together." Silence followed as he mulled over my proposition, the weight of unspoken truths swirling around us. The atmosphere felt charged, heavy with the possibility of change. "I'll talk to her," he finally decided, his voice resolute but tempered with caution. "But it might not be easy." With our plans laid out, I realized this was a turning point for our family dynamics. "I'll support you regardless of how it unfolds," I said, my heart swelling with hope. "We can navigate this." The mantra that had sustained me echoed, a reminder of inner strength. "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart." As the evening stretched before us, the dim lighting warmed the otherwise tense air. Together, we would begin to unravel what had been tightly held together by Vanessa's wit and my silence. I sensed a shift, a glimmer of possibility that felt electric. The hopelessness that had begun to settle over my heart now transformed into a steely resolve. The night was no longer merely a dinner. It had become the beginning of something profound. I was ready to reclaim not only my voice but my rightful place in our family. The path ahead held uncertainty, but it also promised the potential for healing, a restoring of balance and dignity where there had been deception and manipulation. With each passing moment, I felt momentum grow within me, a newfound empowerment in articulating my truth and reclaiming my identity. The journey ahead was still fraught with challenges, but together, David and I would step forward into the light, determined to rebuild the connections that had frayed over time. I would no longer let Vanessa silence me. I was ready to take a stand for my family and for myself. The week that followed felt interminable, a series of agonizingly slow hours filled with anxious anticipation. Each day bled into the next, my thoughts swirling around my last conversation with David. Rehearsing our strategy felt like waiting for a storm to hit, a tension building in the air that promised a major upheaval. When David finally called, I answered on the second ring, a mixture of hope and dread gripping my heart. "Mom, are you home?" he asked, his voice carrying an edge that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Yes, what's going on?" I pressed, already sensing the weight in his tone. "I talked to Vanessa," he began, hesitation lacing his words, "but it didn't go how I thought it would." I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter, my pulse quickening. "What do you mean?" "I tried to bring up how you felt about her comments. I thought humor would soften the blow, but—" His words trailed off. "What happened?" I urged, my stomach twisting with worry. "She laughed it off," he admitted, his disappointment palpable through the phone. "Said you were being overly sensitive and that I should lighten up." Silence fell heavy between us. The sting of frustration pierced my resolve, yet I forced myself to stay calm. "David, that's exactly what I was worried about. We need to confront her seriously. She won't change if she thinks her words are harmless." "I didn't expect her to react that way," he confessed. "I know you didn't, but we need to make her see this isn't just a joke," I replied, my voice steady. "You have to stand firm in this. You can't let her make you uncomfortable for defending your mother." His uncertainty bubbled back to the surface. What if she gets even angrier? You need to remind her that I'm your mother, not an intruder. Family is supposed to support one another, I urged, hoping my passion would ignite his own determination. I'll talk to her again, he finally said, although I could hear the doubt creeping back into his tone. I just need to think about how to approach it. I took a deep breath and shifted my focus to my journal, flipping through the pages filled with observations and notes. This time I would help him prepare for the confrontation, crafting arguments backed by specific examples, moments that showcased Vanessa's manipulative nature cloaked in humor. I wanted him to feel equipped to stand up for me and for himself. The confrontation day loomed ahead, each hour stretching into what felt like an eternity. I set the dining table with care, placing my notes neatly hidden beneath a colorful tablecloth, a subtle reminder of the gravity of our discussion. Vanessa's cooking wafted through the air, a scent that once brought comfort now mingled with anxiety, transforming it into something heavier. When David arrived, he looked pensive, the tension hanging around him like a cloud. "Mom," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I don't know if we should do this." "We have to, David," I insisted, my hands trembling slightly. "I need you with me, standing firm in this together." As Vanessa entered the room, balancing a platter of her latest culinary creation, she beamed like a Broadway star taking her final bow. "Clara, you're going to love this dish. I've perfected it," she announced, her confidence radiating. "Thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate your effort," I replied, my tone calm but resolute. "I need to talk to you privately for a moment." Her smile faltered, brows knitting together. "What's this about?" she asked, the flicker of concern evident. "It's about our family dynamics and how they've been affected by some comments you've made," I stated, my heart racing as I gestured toward another room. David's eyes darted nervously between us, but I had to push through. Once inside the living room, I faced her. "Vanessa, I think it's important we address how your humor is often hurtful. It's not just playful teasing, it impacts me and David." Her expression hardened. "Oh, come on, Clara. You're taking this too seriously. It's just jokes. We're family, right?" "No, it's more than jokes to me," I replied, my heart pounding, a fierce determination fueling my voice. "It's disrespectful, and I feel dismissed. Really, I didn't think you could be so sensitive," she snapped back, her tone cutting as she crossed her arms defiantly. David spoke up, his voice firmer than I expected. "Mom's feelings matter, Vanessa. You can't just brush them aside." The tension in the room surged, Vanessa's eyes narrowing in disbelief. "Are you seriously taking her side?" "What side?" "I'm taking our family's side," David replied, his newfound strength shining through as he moved closer to me. "Mom's pain is valid, and we need to support her." I felt the weight of his words settle into the air, creating a crack in Vanessa's facade. "You need to understand how your words hurt others," I insisted, pushing forward. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, awaiting her response. With her world of control beginning to crumble, Vanessa's defensiveness clashed with the reality of our united front. "You think you can just gang up on me? You're both overreacting." "No, we're prioritizing family. We're trying to create a space where everyone can feel valued and uplifted," I emphasized, feeling empowered. In that moment, I realized this confrontation was not just about reclaiming my voice. It was an invitation for every member of our family to participate in nurturing kindness and respect. By standing firm together, David and I were creating a path toward healing, a foundation for the family that I had longed for. As the evening progressed, I felt hope radiating within me. Although the path to reclaiming our familial bond was fraught with challenges, I also felt the tides beginning to turn. With our voices intertwined, I knew we could navigate this journey together, fostering strength in our unity while dismantling the walls that had divided us for far too long. The tension in the room thickened, a charged silence falling over us as Vanessa grappled with this unexpected turn of events. I could see her internal struggle, the amusement slipping from her face as realization began to dawn. I glanced at David. His posture was strong, resolute, and for the first time in ages a flicker of pride blossomed within me. The child I had raised stood before me, ready to defend not just me but the values of respect and compassion I had long instilled in him. Vanessa's defensiveness crumbled into an awkward silence. "I'm just the one trying to hold everything together," she shot back, her voice wavering slightly. "If I can't joke around, then what's left?" "That's not the point," David interjected, his voice steady. "You can still joke without undermining others. This family is about support, not ridicule." A knot twisted in my stomach as I watched her face polarize with shame and fury. I had seen this storm before, a mix of anger and desperation to cling on to the illusion of control. It was in those moments I felt the need to stand tall, to be the mother who could guide her through this turbulent acceptance. "Vanessa," I began, my voice softer now, calmer. "You can still be funny. Humor can be uplifting. It doesn't have to come at someone else's expense. This is about nurturing the love we all have for each other." Her eyes flickered, dancing between their usual sharpness and something almost vulnerable. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." "Then let's work on it," I proposed gently, my heart racing. "Let's create a family environment where we can all speak our truths without fear. We need to move forward, not just for ourselves, but for the future." David cleared his throat. "Mom's right. It's about unity. Let's redefine what our family dinners look like, supportive and safe. No more cutting jabs or jokes that hurt, just love." With those words, I could see a crack begin in her bravado. For the first time, doubt seeped into her bravado, and I felt a surge of hope as I pressed on. "It would really mean a lot to me, Vanessa. It's crucial for our family's harmony." As the silence stretched out, I watched her face shift. A wave of realization coursed through her. The perfectionist roles she had tried to play were beginning to unravel. "But then how am I supposed to win?" she murmured, trailing off in uncertainty. "You don't need to win anything," David said firmly. "This isn't a competition. Family is about having each other's backs, not pushing one another down." Tears pooled in the corners of Vanessa's eyes, and she blinked rapidly, struggling to maintain composure. And then it hit me. She was just a woman trying to protect what she thought was her place in this family. For so long, I had allowed her words to lessen my worth, and now I was forcing her to examine her own actions. It felt monumental, but completely daunting. "Let's not put a label on it, Vanessa. Let's frame it differently. This can be a new chapter for all of us," I offered cautiously, uncertain of how she would react. She looked between David and me, the tension beginning to dissipate. "A chapter?" she echoed softly, vetting the idea more as a possibility than outright rejection. "Yes," I nodded, feeling the warmth of hope rekindle within me. "This can be a chance for all of us to grow, to build each other up instead of tearing one another down." A moment stretched in silence, heavy but filled with possibility. Vanessa took a deep breath, and finally, with a voice tinged with sincerity, she mumbled, "Okay, I'll try to be better." The relief washed over me like a gentle tide. Not the end, but a new beginning. David's eyes sparkled with the kind of confidence only triumph can create. He turned to me, and in that shared glance, I understood we were breaking free from the chains of humiliation and reclaiming dignity for our family. "Let's do this, together," I said, wrapping my arm around David's shoulder. "Yeah," he agreed, a smile breaking through as the air cooled with laughter. Together we found ourselves stepping into uncharted, brighter territory, and I could finally breathe deeply, relieved that the conversation had opened a channel to healing rather than destruction. As we gathered in the living room, I felt my mantra take hold. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. It echoed gently through my mind as I learned to embrace the unknown with renewed strength, tenderness, and love, building a vibrant future with the family I had fought so hard for.